Hello and happy Friday, and thanks for tuning in to RadioFreeRhinecliff.org. And this show in particular, correct me if I'm Norm. I'm your host, Norm. I'm thrilled to be here tonight with Mr. Henry Frischknecht. Henry, thanks so much for coming in.
Well, thanks for having me, Norm.
And if you tuned in exactly, if I haven't heard a little delay, a little dead air, chalk it up to whatever is going on with the solar eclipse and the earthquake and sunspots and whatever is happening in this world.
Illuminati.
Blame it on the Illuminati. Also Obama. Thanks, Obama. Did you feel the earthquake, Henry?
Yes.
You were in school, presumably?
I was at DC BOCES at a youth summit thing for some students. And we felt it for sure. I thought it was the way it was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I have squirrels living in the ceiling of my house. And I thought that is the hugest squirrel ever shaking the house.
You got a bad badger up there.
Yeah, honey badger. So what is DC BOCES?
It's the Dutchess County BOCES. And we were invited to it's called the Youth Changemaker Summit. Some of my students from last year, from my civics class, they had done a project that was not necessarily centered around sustainability, but kind of included sustainability. They did a water fountain project, and they raised money and did all this research on water fountains and water accessibility. And they went through the village and raised some money through Rhinebeck Science Foundation, some crowdfunding, and they're installing a water fountain at the mini park. And so they were invited to talk about their project and present to other districts around the county at BOCES.
Wow.
So it's cool.
That's just amazing.
Yeah.
So just in case people tuned in not knowing, you're a social studies or history teacher in the 7th grade at Bulkley Middle School.
Yes, sir.
You're in the Rhinebeck Central School District.
That's right.
And you, let's go back to the water fountain thing.
Okay.
How did this come about?
So I'll start kind of in the beginning. With I have to give a lot of credit to our current administration, and they're kind of allowing us to kind of go off on tangents, I guess, or kind of do what we want to do.
Go off script.
Yeah, and create classes that are really innovative and thoughtful. And so I don't want to say they challenged us, but they gave us some space to create classes that we wanted to create. And my class is civics, and so it centers around, we talk in the beginning a little bit about philosophy of American philosophy and government and stuff like that, and we visit village hall and town hall and talk to Gary and Elizabeth Spenzia and stuff and do that. But then the crux of it, which is the most exciting piece, is kids kind of think about, brainstorm problems or ways that they can help the community and develop projects around that. And so the kids in this particular instance were like, if we go into town, we want water, what are we going to do? We got to go to Village Pizza, which is lovely, and maybe buy water or beg, borrow, and steal from somebody. There's not really access to free water, ready access to free water in town. And they were like, we want to change that. And so I reached out. So each group that has a project gets a mentor. Their mentor was Gary Bassett, because I know he's got a lot to do with the water and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is great. We live in a small town. We can get the mayor to do that kind of stuff.
It's amazing.
And so he would come in every week, and he brought schematics in for the water, the piping under the underground piping and stuff. And they identified places in the town where they could install water fountains. They chose 2 places, and they applied for grants. They did crowdfunding, and they purchased it, and now it's going to go in.
And what were the 2 places?
So the first place was in the mini park, which is that we got enough money to be able to do that one.
And that's right there at the bottom of the road that goes to school.
Yeah, and right now, if you look in the mini park, you can see it's cordoned off with red or orange tape. They've dug down. They've tapped into the pipe. So that's ready to go in hopefully sometime soon. And then the other space that they identified was right outside Village Hall, going into town there.
Oh.
And unbeknownst to me, I guess the fairgrounds saw what we had done. The town saw what we had done, and the fairgrounds specifically has purchased 4 of the exact same fountains to go in at the fairgrounds. And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe that the town is considering or in the process of getting one for like the Star Park. But I am not 100%. I just heard that through the grapevine.
Wow, amazing! And so, what happened to the one by Town Hall? Because that sounds like another great place to have a fountain.
It does. Each of these fountains, because they're like corrosive, like resistant and freeze resistant and all this stuff, they've got like a water bottle fill up. It's really fancy, like gonna last 100 years kind of thing. They're like $10,000 each. We just didn't have the money to get two.
And did the kids raise the money for the one that's going in?
Yeah, they wrote a grant to the Rhinebeck Science Foundation for the one, and then they crowdfunded for maybe about $3,000 of it. They crowdfunded through the QR code and stuff like that, word of mouth.
Freaking amazing.
Yeah,
for the kids. And how much was the grant from the Science Foundation?
I want to say. See, this is where I told you I should have brought notes. I screwed up. I want to say either 10 or 12,000. I can't remember the exact amount.
Okay, and so why was the mini park a better choice than Town Hall?
I think the thought was they wanted it for student access first and foremost, and so they're always going through the mini park. Kids are always running through there, playing there, doing whatever there. Town Hall's a great space. Yeah. They go into town fairly regularly, but they felt that the students would get more use out of it if it was in the mini park. Right. Kids walking home from school and stuff like that.
I love that. And so you said this was part of a civics class. Mm-hmm. Is a civics class like a part of your regular curriculum?
No. So I teach 4 social studies classes, and then I have a civics class with cycles every 4 days. So I have 4 different classes essentially, and each class works on different projects. And so it's
4 different civics classes.
We have like a 4 ABC day cycle, and we, I have 8, 10, 15, 20, whatever number of kids in each of those classes. So I get to see them every 4 days. And it's the best part about it for me is it's not graded. The kids theoretically could just sit there and say, I'm not doing work. But I could just list all of we got a hydroponic garden. We have a hygiene closet now for deodorant, for soap, for toothbrushes, for feminine hygiene products, for whatever the kids might need.
Right.
These are projects that the kids kind of championed.
Okay.
And raised the money for, or applied for grants for, or we found money in the budget for. And that's all ungraded, just them wanting to make their community better.
So are these current projects, or are these projects that were in the same sort of cycle as the water fountain?
Yeah, those were the projects from last year. Right now, what we've got...
Was that the first year?
That was the first year, yeah. Okay. And I'm going to tell you, it was a bear for me personally to orchestrate all that. The mentors were really clutch, because I could call... I would call up just people like you, my friends who I know have an expertise in something, and say, can you spare an hour once a week to come here and work with these kids? And they would come in prepared, and they would help guide the kids. I'm just the one that's emailing and trying to do logistics, and they're the ones that are really working with the kids.
Right. Well, so I want to ask what the projects are now, but how did you have, it sounds like it was your idea to have the civics class?
Yeah, I thought it would be. You know me.
What defines civics? I do know you. You're amazing.
So for me, civics really is about learning and understanding kind of your place in the community and engaging with the community in a way that's going to benefit you and the people around you. And understanding that it's your right and your responsibility to do that. And I think it promotes. One thing we were talking about today, actually, when my students were presenting, was a student in the back had said, well, what if somebody, vandalizes that fountain? And I said, that's what the civics class is about. It's about teaching kids to engage in a way that's going to make them proud of their community, and check each other if somebody goes to do something like that, to say, well, no, Joe over there, put this fountain in. You can't do that. This is our home,
Right.
And take
You can't
that sense of
vandalize
pride.
that.
Yeah.
Well, so are all seventh graders in this civics class program?
So we have 3 enrichment classes, and then we have support classes for students, and we have band and chorus. So people can choose, any permutation of that. So I think I have, of the current 7th grade, I probably have about half of them in my civics class right now. So not everybody does that. There's also innovation in biomimicry. So that's like a science class where they learn about how how to mimic like butterflies, the way butterfly flaps its wings, and how can we use that to innovate
Amazing.
creations.
Yeah, we had Dorna Schroeder on here talking about that stuff.
So Dorna was
Forget
at the.
about it. Amazing.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
She was at the BOCES thing today. She organized it, which was great. And then there's exercising your mind and body. So being mindful and like moving and things like those are the 3 extra classes that are ungraded.
Right. And so you must get to know. Do you get to personally teach all of the kids in the 7th grade?
Yeah, well, through the social studies, yes, I get every student in 7th grade.
Every student. So you know all of them.
Yes.
And you must meet some who you think they would really benefit from this civics thing.
Yeah.
And if they choose band or biomimicry, do you ever say, "Hey, you might like this"? Gently pull them into that.
Yeah, usually that process happens when they're in 6th grade. And I try, having kids in the school and teaching in the school is really beneficial for me. So I kind of see which kids I know would be really a good fit for that, and I try to get them to kind of participate. So, for example, the Youth Climate Change Summit, we had a few 6th graders do it today. And my goal, and I talked to John Chemnitzer, our principal, I talked to him today about it. I said, I would love to get a cohort of like 6, 8, 10 kids that are just into that kind of climate change stuff and have one civics class just center around that. And so we might finagle it, might work it a little bit to see if we can do that. Which is like, how awesome is that in a town like ours to be able to control a schedule that way in order to give kids what would benefit them the most. I think it's just really awesome.
Spectacular. And I'm guessing that's with the mentor Vanessa Bertozzi.
Which one?
The climate change.
Yeah, the
class.
So that's going to be like next year, I think.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know who the mentor for that's going to be.
Right, because she does that climate smart Rhinebeck.
Yeah.
thing.
So she was a mentor last year for me with Safe Routes to School, Roadbeck.
Right.
She's one of those folks that are just everywhere all at once, all the time.
As are you. It's insane. As I said in the little promo piece, a guy who just has more hours in the day than the rest of us. How much sleep do you get?
Oh, I get 8 hours every day, Norm.
Do you?
Oh yeah, get up at 5:30. I work out, and we clean the kitchen. I'm a little too overboard. My problem is I don't give myself enough downtime, I think.
Right.
But I think I thrive on that.
So if that's a problem, what are you doing to solve that?
Well, I'm really fortunate with having a million children that they always want to do something with, play a board game or snuggle on the couch or something. So they'll bring me in and force me to stop working many times.
Right. Huh. And how many exactly is a million?
Well, I have 4 children, and we have also a 5th young lady who lives with us from Madagascar, who's going to school here at Dutchess.
Wow.
So we have 5 kids, I guess, right now. So there's 7 of us in the house.
So 4 kids and then somebody who's living there.
Yep.
And how did that come to pass that somebody's just living there?
Oh man, we only have an hour, right? This is
yeah, 45 minutes left.
So I don't want to go too far down the adoption trail, but one of my daughters is adopted. And when we were in Madagascar, we were stuck there during the pandemic. All this is relevant to Jenna, who's our Malagasy friend that lives with us.
Okay.
I had to leave unexpectedly. And
Had to leave where?
Madagascar. When we were adopting, I was stuck there during the pandemic for about 6 months. I'd leave unexpectedly. My father had passed.
Can we slow down the story just a little bit?
Sorry.
So somehow you're going to Madagascar to adopt this child. Mm-hmm. What's her name again? Siori.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit.
Yes.
And you're stuck there for 6 months?
Correct.
What was that? I mean, there's your downtime, I guess.
Yes. And for somebody like me, it was absolutely excruciating.
Yeah. And were you in touch with Siori the whole time you were there?
Yeah, we picked Siori up on maybe the 15th of March, which was...
Oh, God.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Yeah.
So on the 15th of March, the adoption was complete. Mm-hmm. And now here's your kid.
The adoption wasn't complete, or else we could have left.
Oh.
We got Siori, and then everything shut down, and they refused to let us leave Madagascar.
Everything shut down, all the government offices, and so the adoption was like 99% finished.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't staple two pieces of paper together.
They like stamps and bureaucracy a lot in Madagascar. And so they wouldn't let us leave. My wife had to leave because my kids were back here. So it was just me and Siori for maybe 3 months. Like my wife stayed with me for a few months, but then my kids were back in the U.S., so she had to leave. So I was there just with me and Siori for a while.
And then so eventually when the lockdown eased, the offices opened up and they gave you the stamp you needed?
Well, eventually my dad died, and then I had to leave Siori in Madagascar with Jenna's family. So that's where the connection with Jenna comes in. Okay. So I had to leave Madagascar at a moment's notice, basically, to take care of my father's estate. And we are really fortunate to have very good friends in Madagascar, a lot of very good friends. And my friend Mika took Siori for, August, September, October, November, for about 3 months. And then he had to drive once the adoption was finalized, he had to drive like 20 hours north, take a boat to an island, the north of Madagascar, because they only had one airport open. Fly to Ethiopia. My wife flew to Ethiopia with my eldest son. They got Siori, and then they came home.
Egads.
And so, of course, when he said his daughter wanted to go to school in the U.S., I was like, absolutely.
Right. And how old is she?
She's 18. Yeah.
Right. And she's in high school around here somewhere?
She's going to Dutchess right now.
Oh, okay.
So she's getting her degree in business.
Great.
Which is awesome. Working hard.
And her English is good?
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I got to ask, how did you first connect to Madagascar? A funny place to have all this history with.
Yeah, that's a shorter story, I guess. So we're really fortunate to have some incredible residents here in Rhinebeck. And Susan Findel and Stefan Findel live down the road. And they had come to the school, I want to say 15 years ago, maybe 12. Yeah, somewhere in that realm. Yeah. And they were brought this woman named Patricia Wright. Patricia Wright is, I call her the Buzz Aldrin of anthropologists, because she's out in Madagascar discovering new species of lemurs, doing all this really incredible stuff. She's a wonderful human. And to have access to people of that caliber with that kind of expertise was fantastic. And they wanted to work with the school. And I said, we would be crazy not to do that.
What kinds of things did they want to do?
Susan wanted to bring students to Madagascar, which is what we saw we brought that to fruition through CultureConnect. But we started with this thing called Our Villages, which was a connection between Rhinebeck and Rana-Mafana. We did pen pals. We had some
Rana-Mafana, the capital city.
Rana-Mafana is a city about 12 hours south of the capital city of Madagascar. Is Antananarivo.
Okay.
So Rana-Mafana is about 12 hours south, and that's where Pat has a Centro Valbio, which is a rainforest research station. Is located there. So that's where she is, Pat is located. So that's why we did Our Villages and had some pen pals. And we started small, and then we kind of built larger.
And so you had pen pals between 7th grade kids here, your kids, and 7th grade kids there.
Yes.
And how did it snowball from there?
So from there, Susan hooked up with this group called Zara Aina, which is a group of Broadway actors who, separately from us, established a program in Madagascar to kind of empower youth through play and they call it through being a clown, kind of. But It's really about performance arts and gaining confidence in yourself to be able to kind of go out there and take on the world. And so I started talking to these folks from Zara Aina. They came up to Rhinebeck. They did what we call like Madagascar Day. This is where Madagascar Day in Rhinebeck comes from. And they just like played with our kids and created like little plays and stuff like that.
So these Broadway actors who somehow got a connection with Madagascar would come up to Rhinebeck.
That's right.
And for something called Madagascar Day. Mm-hmm. And what happened on Madagascar Day?
They came up and we would have like like Malagasy folk tales, and we break the kids into groups, and then they make a play from this folk tale, and then we perform the play for each other. So it's really just about like kind of letting go of some of your reservations and being brave, and like
it's great.
It was really cool.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you know offhand any Malagasy folk tales?
Yeah. They're mildly inappropriate, but I can tell you one basically.
You know, it's cable or
We're here. Okay,
internet or whatever.
So one interesting one is called Crocodiles for Husbands.
Okay, I like it already.
Okay, so we have. I'm going to not do it justice, but I'm going to do my best. We have this family, and there are 3 sisters, and there's the youngest brother. His name is Little Ass Full of Ulcers, so he's not looking too good. He walks with a cane. And so these 3 sisters are going about their business, and they're looking for suitors. And these suitors keep coming, and they keep denying the suitors. No, we don't want these suitors. By some chance of God, crocodiles dress up as men and seduce these
multiple
women.
Crocodiles.
3 crocodiles dress up as men, and they seduce the sisters. Now, Little Ass Full of Ulcers can see through their disguise and like, don't go with them. And they're like, the sisters are kicking the little brother and being like, shut up, you don't know what you're talking about.
Can you tell me again slowly, what's the little brother's name?
Little Last Full of Ulcers.
Little Last?
Last Full of Ulcers.
Okay.
Yeah. So
thank you.
Again, that gives you a good sense of what he, he's struggling, I think, in life. And so the crocodiles bring the sisters back to their like lair under the guise of marriage.
Right.
And they capture Little Last also, and they put him like in their cage, in this like cage underground or something, and they're going to eat him. So luckily Little Last has a cane. He starts poking at this hole in this cage and eventually breaks the sisters out. Right?
Yeah.
So they flee. Now they believe him. They flee back to the village, and the crocodiles come looking for their wives.
Right.
And so the townspeople are like angry with the crocodiles, but they don't let them know it. What they do is they give them a bunch of booze. They get them drunk, in this house, and they burn the house down, killing all the crocodiles. And I think the moral is like...
Wait, that's the end of the story?
That's the end of the story. Yeah, it's a really happy ending.
Yeah. Well, the evil crocodiles get theirs.
That's true. They get theirs. That's true.
Don't dress up like humans and try to marry.
That's right. I think that that's a moral. Crocodiles don't dress up as humans, but also
interspecies marriages.
No interspecies, sure. But also, I think it's like, don't judge, a book by its cover. This little guy, he had something to say, and you need to be thoughtful in the way you interact with people.
Little ass full of ulcers.
Little ass full of ulcers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I heard it. Well, I love that little thing. So that somehow works into Madagascar Day.
Yes.
This kind of a thing, and then kids interpret it. They do a play. They do dances. They write a children's book. They illustrate it, all that kind of stuff.
Well, so that Madagascar Day has grown also. Now it's not just the 7th grade. It's 6, 7, and 8. We bring lemurs in, lemurs that are like not bought from Madagascar, but like were people's pets, and they were like illegally brought here, and that we partner with 2x2 Zoo.
Okay.
And they're like, they can't be released back into the wild, so they're like kept safe. It's not like a zoo situation where we're caging animals.
Right.
But we bring in lemurs. They watch Pat Wright's movie, which is The Isle of Lemurs.
The lemurs watch it?
Maybe. I'm not sure, actually. We'd have to check that out. We have kids that do a keynote on Madagascar, kids that have been with me to Madagascar. They do a keynote there. We have the Zara Aina thing. We make paper, because making paper is one of the, an artisanal, like a craft that happens in Madagascar. We teach Malagasy dance to the 2nd graders. We go to preschools and we teach them about Madagascar. It's a huge, huge day.
And when is Madagascar Day?
Generally, it's like the third week of October.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's a lot of work. And again, like I praised the mentors with the civics program. Really, the way I think of it, like I just organize the stuff. I have partners in the 6th grade, the 7th grade, and the 8th grade that really carry out all of those things and organize each of the grades.
Right.
So I'm a good delegator.
I was just gonna say you must be really good delegator, and a good overseer. So that's how you got connected with Madagascar.
That's right. Yeah.
And then at some point you went there.
Yes.
What was your first trip to Madagascar?
So it was 2016, and I was really fortunate to have met Isabel Burkhart, who kind of got me into this nonprofit. You may be familiar. It's called CultureConnect.
I don't know.
I'm not sure. But she got me involved there, and when I remember the first meeting I went to, and I can't remember if you were a part of CultureConnect first or if it was me. We came around the same time, I think, onto the board.
Yeah.
But I just remember they asked me, like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to make a program where we do a cultural exchange with Madagascar. And I was like, that is my goal.
So you had this idea.
Yep.
You'd never been there.
Nope.
And you brought it to a local nonprofit, CultureConnect. It might have been Young Rhinebeck at the time.
It might have been, yeah.
And they said, great.
Yep.
Join up.
Yep.
We'll have you.
And then I went to Madagascar solo for about 3 weeks in 2016. And because I was not going to bring students to a place I hadn't been.
Right.
And I made just the sheer, I had the fortune of meeting some really incredible people and partnering with them.
And you had some connections through Pat, through Zara-Ina.
Right. So it was, Central Albio and Zara-Ina were like my main kind of go-to ones.
Right.
But I also, we made connections with the local hospitals. We made connections with Heikantu, which is another nonprofit in Madagascar. The thing about Madagascar is once people, it's like people coalesce around it. People hear you've been to Madagascar, and if there's somebody out there that is a nonprofit that has anything to do with Madagascar, they will reach out to you.
Right.
One example, we just connected with a Peace Corps volunteer who's writing a column monthly. She just got there in December, and she and I have connected, and while we're there, we're gonna visit her village, and we're gonna do some work with her. So all this stuff, when it is such a small country.
How big is it population-wise?
About the size of Florida, like 25 million,
okay.
30 million people, somewhere in there. And people hear it, and it's just you get warm feelings.
Right.
It's an amazing. We've created amazing friendships and connections there.
So you had this idea to do an exchange,
mm-hmm.
or just a trip there with Rhinebeck students. Yep. And you take it to this nonprofit. They say, yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Would like to help out. They send you there.
Yes.
For 3 weeks. Now, when you get there and you've got these connections, were there things that made you doubt the feasibility of this dream?
Yeah, I mean,
were there things that scared you?
I did get hit by a car the first couple days, so that was terrifying.
Start, yeah.
The most uncomfortable piece is being surrounded by people that it's a struggle to communicate with. Right. My French is barely passable. Madagascar was colonized by the French, so a lot of the middle and upper class speak French.
Right.
In the rural areas, like communication is hard for me. I speak a little Malagasy, but it is not anything to write home about. And so that piece was a struggle that eventually turns into a really positive thing when we bring kids there, and it's they're outside their comfort zone, and I think there's a lot of growth that happens there. But that piece was scary, and being away from my family, that was tough for me and for them as well. So those pieces for me were hard. I think in terms of bringing kids there, the culture shock. And I'll be honest, when I came back, I had a lot of anger towards like capitalism and like consumerism and stuff like that. And my own kids, I think I was really upset with them when I came home and they were like, well, what'd you bring me? And I was like, what did I bring you? oh, and then and my wife,
a stick in a clump of dirt.
right. I brought you nothing.
Yeah.
My wife was really gracious with me to give me space to process that for like a week.
God bless her.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like say things like you say, like, how do you have all the time in the day? And like, she is the person that is the reason that I have any kind of time at all.
Right.
Cause she is just incredible. But to your point, I just felt like, yeah, we could do it,
And on the flip side of that question, were there things that really reinforced that and thought, oh my God, this is going to be, I didn't even think of this. It's going to be much better than I ever dreamed.
Oh, 100%. Every time I go, every conversation I have, it's constantly like, oh, how can we improve this? This is going to be so awesome. I'm so excited about this.
Right.
Meeting the first time I met our partners in Madagascar, from Zaraina, who are working with the performance groups, it was the things that the students are able to produce there are just inspiring.
Example?
So they did King Lear, right? They did King Lear. So this is like 12, 13-year-olds doing, Shakespeare, right? King Lear's Shakespeare, I think so. Okay, thank God. Whew, nailed it. Whew. And doing it well, and they're kids that don't have the same opportunities and access that we have here. Even the most impoverished people here don't have more access than the kids that we're working with in Madagascar. And so to see them like find the time to create something like that is really incredible. And to have our kids work with them and to empower them to teach our kids like some like acting and like some singing and dance, like it's just really fantastic.
Right. So you did the 3 weeks there. You come back here, you report back in, you say, looks great. Can't wait to do this program. What happened next?
Next, the most important partner in my life stepped up, and this is Deirdre Burns. Mm-hmm. Second most. My wife's the first most. I tell everybody this. So my wife, number one, most important partner. Second best partner I ever had is Deirdre.
And she was another board member at CultureConnect.
Yeah, was and still is. Yeah. And I don't think she knew what she was getting into when she was like, okay, I'll help with this. But she is the perfect balance for me because I will charge forward into a situation without any like some forethought, but I just I want to get stuff done. And she will be like, she's picking up the pieces behind me sometimes,
right.
And like making sure that people feel comfortable doing X, Y, and Z, or that, have you thought about this, Henry? What if X happens? How are we going to respond to that? And I'm just like bulling ahead like a madman.
But when she says, have you thought about this? I mean, you must by now sort of say, okay, I can take a break. I can take a beat.
Yeah.
And stop and actually think about that.
Right. And that's what she's good at. And she does it with as much grace as my wife.
Right.
So,
well, what a treat to have these two wonderful people in your life, these two wonderful women. So how many trips have you taken to Madagascar?
So me, myself, 1, 2, 3.
No, with
school
students.
Kids,
yeah. 3
with students. We're a 4th this summer.
Wow. And it's open to Rhinebeck and Red Hook? Or?
Yep. We opened it to Red Hook this year. We had 1 applicant, and we're taking 1 student from Red Hook. So.
Oh, good. And it's fairly competitive. You get a lot more applicants than you have space for.
I want to say we had maybe 35 applicants this year, and we took 9.
You say took 9, so you have 9.
We have 9 currently.
They're going this coming summer.
Yeah.
And I remember when you brought this program to CultureConnect, you said it was going to be 3 parts. Mm-hmm. 1 was raising money for it.
Yep.
2 was being there, and then 3rd was coming back and telling everybody about their experience. Yeah. Does it still work like that?
Yeah, I would say that there's maybe a 4th part in terms of the preparation. So I would say if I was looking at a full cycle, so we start, let's say, in January with applications.
Right.
Students are chosen by like May. And then really the first portion through maybe May through December is fundraising. Our goal, and I appreciate this goal, and I think it's really important, is to make sure that this is accessible to anybody, no matter what their socioeconomic status.
Right.
So, nominally, it's currently a $2,000 fee, but we make it very public that if you are someone who cannot pay that fee, you can pay anything from $0 to $1,099 to, if you're somebody who has, who feels like they want to contribute more, you could give $4,000 to this. And so we do a lot of fundraising throughout the year.
And do you generally have a mix of those, people who pay very little and people who pay double or triple because they can?
Yep. I've found that people are really honest in their estimation of what they can contribute.
Right.
And I've had people who have said we can only do 500 and then end up giving 1,500 or, anything like that. So it's really nice to have a community that has, some integrity like that.
So at some point you got 35 applicants for this, and then you looked at all of their applications. You interviewed a bunch of them?
We've been trying to interview every person that puts an application in.
Right.
And we now have people from Rhinebeck, and we Zoom people in from Madagascar also to be a part of the interview process. It is the worst part of the whole program because we have to turn kids away, and that's painful.
Right. Kids who are probably awesome candidates.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the selection criteria? What do you really look for?
It's a holistic approach, and we are looking to put together a team of people that bring different strengths. So right now, for example, a portion of this program when we're in Madagascar is musical and acting. I'm not going to bring 9 musicians because we're looking to have people stretch and grow also. So I'm going to bring 3 or 4 solid musicians and a few kids who aren't so comfortable with music, so they can grow. I want to bring kids who are really comfortable traveling that I can rely on if there's something that happens, in the airport or something, and they're going to stay calm. And kids who maybe have never been outside of the state. When this is all true, we've had kids that have traveled to 12 different countries and kids that have never left New York.
Right.
So we try to look at everything on the whole and put a group together that's going to be really complementary in terms of their skills and abilities, so that when we're there, we have people that we can rely on depending on the situation.
Right. So 9 people, you're going. I'm guessing Deirdre's going.
Deirdre's going.
Do you have other chaperones?
We have one more chaperone. Her name's Caroline Grogan. She is an actress in the city.
Okay.
So Deirdre and I are...
Was she part of that group that was... Broadway actors who were helping out?
Yes. So she's Zara Ina. So Deirdre and I were, I don't want to say coerced because that feels bad, but we were asked to be a part of, encouraged, sure, to be part of Zara Ina. So now we serve both on the boards of CultureConnect and on the board of Zara Ina.
Oh, nice.
And so Caroline is basically like the administrator of Zara Ina. And so she's coming with us also, and she brings a lot to, Deirdre and I are old, Caroline's young. She got a lot of energy.
Right.
She's like our connection to the kids sometimes in a way that an old person isn't going to be able to connect to them. And she's just a wonderful person also, huge heart. So.
Right. What a treat. So when does the next trip leave the U.S.?
We leave on June 29th.
And where's there aren't direct flights, right?
No. There was one direct flight once when I was stuck there in Madagascar. There was a direct flight from Tana to D.C. That's the only direct flight I've ever heard of from Madagascar to the U.S.
They had it one time
because they were getting embassy people out,
right,
for COVID. Would have been a fun flight to be on, I think.
Yeah.
I wasn't on it, but
So June 29th.
Yeah, and we go
3 chaperones, 9 kids.
Yeah, we go into Nairobi, and then from Nairobi to Antananarivo.
Wow.
Yep.
How long a flight is it?
It's about 13, 14 hours to Nairobi, and then another 3 or 4 to Madagascar.
Right. And where do you land that first night with all these kids who are experiencing massive amounts of culture shock? Yeah.
So we get in at 1:30 in the morning.
Oof.
To Tana. We have, and this was a connection I made the first year I was there. There's an organization called MySit, and it's basically for people like us who are tourists in Madagascar, and they're drivers, and they're just. I feel like I got the best human beings you could ever find in the world, and they help us.
Right.
And so we have these drivers, and he'll pick us up and he'll bring us to, where we stay. And he'll drive us around down to Central Valbio, all over the country. It's really a great connection that we made there.
Right. Amazing. And I'm just thinking, certainly you attract the best people to you.
I'm very attractive, yes.
Attractive enough for radio.
That's right.
Yeah. But yeah, do you feel that? Do you feel that somehow you get very lucky attracting all these wonderful people to you?
Yeah, I am very lucky.
In this story that you told about Madagascar, there's so many little saints lined up who are helping you out.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it's, I think people recognize what we want to do and want to partner, with us and see what we're doing with young people.
Right.
And I think that's really compelling. And so I reach out to people too, and I'm asking what can I do for you? What can we do for each other to do for the kids?
So what's the short explanation, the elevator pitch, as they say, about what you're doing in Madagascar?
Yeah. So when we're in Madagascar, our goal, and again, CultureConnect, is to develop cultural competency. I want kids coming home that have a sense of the world as it exists outside of Rhinebeck.
Right.
And that's hard. That's really hard, I think, for kids to grasp, even watching movies and talking to people. When you are in country and you're seeing, because Madagascar is the fourth most impoverished country in the world.
Oof.
But they're kids just like you, like our kids are. They're having fun. They're doing all the stuff, and to have that connection, that's our goal. And so Zoo and I, when we developed the program, our goal is to put our kids together as much as possible. So we'll split our kids up into two groups, and we'll have Malagasy kids with the American kids that right now already they have pen pals that they're writing to, that they're going to be working with in Madagascar to get some of that culture shock and that linguistic piece done. And then we travel with them. So we're going to go to the Lemur Preserve with them. We're going to go to some religious sites with them. We're going to go to the Queen's Palace with them. We're going to cook with them.
Right. And do you engage in any reforestation efforts or stuff like that?
So when we go down to Central Valbio, a large portion of that, and this is where I get competitive. Deirdre doesn't get mad at me, but she has to rein me in a little bit because I do love plants. And so part of that effort is we get a bunch of plants and we go into the rainforest with the kids, and we plant and we do some reforestation.
What are the kinds of plants that they need planted most?
So some of the plants are over harvested by foreign groups oftentimes, or the Malagasy people for sale for export illegally.
Which plants are those?
There's rosewood in Madagascar. That is
beautiful.
Yeah, a beautiful plant. And a lot of the times it's that or other native species that are just, because of slash and burn agriculture,
right.
They're not as accessible for the Malagasy people. So that's a big part of the goal for Central Valbio.
Right. And is Central Valbio, I'm just curious, engage in any teaching on sort of sustainability?
Absolutely. So it's Ranamafana National Forest is a huge preserve in Madagascar. And they have a portion of their team is they have medical team, they have an education team. And again, fantastic people. They go out to a lot of the rural villages, and they're educating the kids on reforestation and how to create sustainable agriculture. And that's hard, right? Because you've got people that have been doing this for generations, and then other people are coming in and being like, no, you can't do it that way. This is why it's a problem. When really, in the U.S., we've created a problem, a portion of the problem with, this climate change issue that we're seeing. And they're a portion of what they're dealing with is our fault. And so to tell them they have to change the way they're doing things is challenging.
Right.
But short answer is yes, they are going out and educating the rural villages on how to be more sustainable.
Right. So let me ask you, how long are you there for?
About 3 weeks each year.
And when you come back, you continue to work with these kids.
Yep.
And you've worked with them beforehand. You were there for 3 weeks. You worked with them after.
Yeah.
Do you see changes in them?
Oh,
just like that?
my gosh. Yes. So it's so funny. Deirdre and I just got a text message from a friend, Bethany, who came with us maybe two cycles ago. She's going to work. Oh, where is she working? I don't think I can't remember exactly which country she's working in, but coming from Madagascar, now she's got this passion for, creating infrastructure in African nations. And so she's going over, I don't think it's in Canada. I'd have to look at where she's going exactly to do this work. And that's really I was really proud of her because she was able to take something that we did and she ran with it. And now she's doing all this great stuff on her own. We have Caroline Voorhees, another local young woman who's been back to Madagascar 3 times without us and been doing work there. So a lot of these kids, these students, these adults now are taking kind of lessons they learned and giving back in a way that was exactly what we wanted.
That must be so gratifying.
Yeah.
So, and what about, so those are amazing examples. What about the kids, like when you come back and you're still working, they're still kids, they're still students. Do you see changes in their attitude or their comportment or?
Yeah. I mean, I've had kids that have, before we went, they were really nervous to speak publicly about this or really nervous to go. And they come back, and I have had a couple kids be like, "Can I be the keynote speaker for the Madagascar Day? I want to be the one that." And these are kids that I never would have thought would want to stand up and speak about it, but they're so engaged with what we're doing that they want to really share that, which is so great. And we have so like the Star Library, we had a big art show there on Madagascar, where the kids got up, every kid, and they spoke about an art piece that they made that connects to Madagascar and kind of what their experience was. It's really incredible to see kids that are suffering maybe with some anxiety or some sadness, and they're able to kind of break out of that in the moment and be engaged in a way that I hadn't seen them previously. What
a beautiful gift that you're giving for these kids.
Well, and they give it to us too. I mean, it is definitely reciprocated.
Right. So it must be so much work to plan this trip.
Yeah. Yep. You're right. It is a lot of work.
Well, thank you for doing all that. And let me just make a little plug. I mean, it's just such a ridiculously wonderful program, and you're always fundraising. And if anybody's listening and wants to go help, they can go to CultureConnectRBK.org.
Yep.
It's RBK for Rhinebeck. And there's a big donate now button right there.
That's
and I
right.
think there's an opportunity to say what you want to donate for.
Yes.
But yeah, CultureConnectRBK.org, and you can support Henry's efforts there. Let me ask, I mean, you started this civics class. You do this Madagascar thing. You were always sort of being of service somewhere. Did you grow up with that ethic sort of as part of your life, your parents?
Yeah, so I think my formative experience was in 10th grade. And it was because of an organization called the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference, which is HOBY. And it sounds really silly, but essentially they would bring one student from each school in New York, and we all went to a conference together to kind of talk about leadership. And I went there, and it felt like it was first of all, I was really lucky to have some incredible teachers and counselors in Rhinebeck that encouraged me, because I was chosen out of all the 10th graders to be able to go. And my grades were fine, but it wasn't like spectacular. And they saw in me like that I needed a little push, I think. And so I went to this conference and I made some awesome friends. It was the first place I felt like I could really be myself and like let go and be silly and not worry about what people thought about me. And I really liked that feeling. And so this was a group and is a group of people that are very service oriented. And in the beginning, I was like, oh, I just want to hang out with my friends. So we'd go to food banks or we'd go on like runs or whatever it was to give back to the community. And I think slowly I started seeing the value of service through this organization. And I stayed with them for maybe 15 years. I would go back and be a counselor and help in various ways. And now they ask me every couple of years to come back and speak. And I'm still...
This is the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Conference.
And so I'm really fortunate to have had that experience as a young person. That was really a formative piece for me.
Huh. And so how did your life change after that?
I just started doing service.
Right. Did you grow up in the church?
I mean, I was baptized. We
quite.
went to church a little bit. Yeah, I mean, here and there. My wife is more devout, I think. I think I have a spirituality, but I'm not as devout as my wife is.
Right. And would you say that service is a form of spirituality for you?
I think that's a great way to put it, Norm.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah. It is for many. I grew up in the church, and as soon as I sort of understood the religious part, I'm like, that's not really for me. But the service part kind of stuck. Yeah. I'm like, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels good to do good, I think. And I think, that piece of it is something that I want to impart on people.
Right. Well, bless you, Henry Frischknecht. And a special shout out to the Mrs. Maureen.
Yes,
she's awesome. Name right. Who's just spectacular.
She is.
And she's a teacher as well?
She teaches in Arlington, yeah.
Right, which is just down the road there.
Yep.
And how did you all meet?
We went to high school together.
Here in Rhinebeck?
Here in Rhinebeck, yep.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2000. She was 01. And then I went to Dutchess for 2 years, and she went to St. Rose. But I want to say it was my sophomore year, the summer of my sophomore year, we ended up working at Dell's together. And just kind of, it was that love story. I made her a mixed CD. Right. Oh
no! What was on the mixtape?
Oh, I don't. Gosh, Norm, you asked. That was 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
Here's what I can.
Well, listen, you're gonna have an anniversary coming up. You need to figure out what it is and reproduce that mixtape.
I already have Don't tell her, but I already have an anniversary gift that I think is pretty good.
Yeah, tell us what it is. She's not listening.
She could be listening. I can't do that. Anniversary's coming up in July.
July, nice. Good
July.
Start. June, July. I don't know.
Something.
Maybe somewhere.
I'm gonna be here for it, so it's definitely June.
That was my question. That's good.
Yeah, but so here's the mixtape. She was going on a little like trip upstate for like 3 days or 4 days, and I was like, all right, here's how I'm gonna work this. I want her to be thinking about me. So I made this mixtape, and I was like, "Hey, this is just a mixtape for when you're driving." And I was in her head the entire time.
That is great.
That was my goal.
So come on, sophomore year 2000. Mm-hmm. What music were you listening to?
Oh my goodness! I mean, I remember California. If you remember that song where they say California like 27 times, probably some Blink-182, maybe Sublime, stuff like that. Okay. Kind of poppy. Kind of
pop rock
funk kind of stuff. Yeah.
Nice. So that's probably what got on the mixtape. Yeah. And did you burn a CD?
Oh, I absolutely burned it. We were using Napster or Kazaa or whatever it was, illegally downloading.
Yeah.
Legally downloading content.
Right.
And definitely burned that CD. Yeah.
Right. And it's long gone.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, we do no longer have that CD. That is for sure.
And did you make a cover with the song lists and some art? Did you draw a picture?
You've seen my art. I think
hearts on it
with hearts. I think that was coming on a little too strong, Norm. We hadn't held hands yet.
Yeah.
To put a bunch of hearts would have been a little over the top.
So she comes back from the trip. Mm-hmm. She's like, "Oh my God, Henry, that mixtape was so good."
That's right. And I was like, I hooked her.
Really?
Yep. Oh, no doubt.
And so you're both working at Dell's.
Yep.
And you hooked her, and so you asked her out.
Yep.
You said, well, maybe you'd like to go out and talk about Blink-182 some night.
Sure.
And she said, sure.
Yep.
And that was it.
That was it. The story is written in the annals of history now.
Right. So is it a big anniversary? Is it like 20th or something coming up?
Oh God, Norm, you're really putting
never mind. I'm
07, so it's 24 right, now. So what's that? I don't know. Do the math. Do that math. 24 minus 17.
No.
Jen?
You're fine.
24 minus 17. Yeah, that's 7.
No,
24 minus 17
7.
is, okay.
24
You're
minus
okay.
7.
You're fine.
So 17
Yeah, okay, good.
Years to plan.
years.
Yeah. Years to plan. So you grew up in Rhinebeck. Mm-hmm. How has Rhinebeck changed over all those years? How have the high school kids changed?
Yeah.
Junior high kids.
So Rhinebeck on a whole, I guess I'll start there. When I was growing up, it did have that small town feel still, and I think it still has that small town feel. I think the biggest difference for me now is, of course, tourism has increased, tenfold.
Right.
I get nervous to go into town on the weekends, so I stay out of town on the weekends. But I think it's just there's a lot more people there. There's a lot more access to really good food now than there was. Some people say like, oh, I can't walk down the street I don't know anybody anymore. But I feel like I walk down the street, I know plenty of people. So I feel like there's that feel still, but you've got like a little infusion of Manhattan here, which isn't a bad thing, I don't think.
Right.
In terms of the kids, I think largely they are the same. They were the same up until about COVID. I think COVID is the thing that really changed the culture.
In what way?
Me. I think we are a little challenged with resiliency now. I think that's the hard thing.
What does that mean?
I have a lot of students they're all wonderful, but they lack the confidence in themselves a lot of the times. They want to double check their work. They're unsure of themselves. They don't want to be wrong. And they're a little bit afraid to be wrong.
Interesting.
And so I think that they want to, like in terms of resiliency, I guess what I would say is it's hard to bounce back a little bit from making mistakes, and they're afraid to do that.
And you think that was a result of sort of being homeschooled for so long?
Yeah, I think that we gave them a lot and didn't force them to feel uncomfortable. And now when they're uncomfortable, they don't like it. And I don't like it either, which I get. So
right. Huh. But you seem fairly comfortable with uncomfortableness.
I'm good at masking it.
Well, flying to Madagascar to check it out, that's fairly uncomfortable.
Yeah. But I think that's a cost analysis, right? Like the benefit of that is huge compared to the discomfort.
And I find that very interesting. Do you look at a lot of decisions in your life from that perspective?
Yes, especially if it's just my discomfort. I think I need to, because I shouldn't let myself get in the way of other people's like benefits, if that makes sense.
Sure.
You know?
Are there other? Madagascar is an obvious example of that. Are there others in your life that spring to mind?
Yeah, I mean, just becoming a teacher, I think, was really uncomfortable for me. Like it's scary to get up there. It was scary to get up there in the beginning. I quit my job. You know.
What was your job?
I had a lot of jobs. I was a cook. I was a landscaper, and I saw this as an opportunity to create change in the world that would be beneficial and be able to be with my family a little bit more. So that was a calculated choice to become an educator.
So you graduated in 2000.
2000, yep.
2000, and you went to DCC.
Yep.
Did you finish there?
Yeah, I cannot say enough about Dutchess Community College. I was fortunate enough to go.
I love it.
Yeah, it was great. I went through the honors program there, so I was in a cohort that like stayed together. And then I went to SUNY Albany from Dutchess, and then I was like, I want to be a chef, and I went to Schenectady Community College for culinary arts. I cooked out in Kentucky for the Kentucky Derby and did a bunch of work out there. I cooked at an incredible place up in Albany that no longer exists.
So you cooked at Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
What were you making?
So we had a lot of different spaces. My space, I think I got the best deal. I cooked for the like VIPs, not like the celebrities, but like the really rich people.
Right.
So we're talking like caviar and shrimp and blah, 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 just the kind of things. And I cooked under Wolfgang Wolfgang Puck's assistant chef who ran the Staples Center in L.A. His name was Kitty Pong.
Kitty Pong.
Kitty Pong. He was a great mentor for me in terms of cooking, and he actually advised me out of cooking because essentially I don't know how much I should say on air here, but the culture in those spaces to make a lot of money included a lot of drugs and alcohol, and I was not into that scene.
Did you read Kitchen Confidential, the Anthony Bourdain book?
I did
about
not.
that?
I might have. When did that come out?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
Around about then, I think, maybe mid-90s.
Yeah. So it was, he was really inspiring for me in that way.
Kitty Pong.
Yeah, Kitty Pong.
And so he advised you out of it, which is interesting. But in terms of being a mentor while you're in it, what were some of the things that you picked up from him about cooking and working your way around the kitchen?
Being present
in the moment.
And in the moment. And being responsive
because when you're not, you slice your fingertip off with a knife.
I spilled, my first day, I spilled a shrimp Alfredo all over him. And I thought it was over for me. He was not happy.
Right.
But I think that he respected my work ethic. And so over the course of the month that we were there, he and I got pretty close. I don't even know if he'd remember me now, to be honest with you, because he probably does this for a lot of people.
Have you followed him? Where is he now?
I don't know where he is now.
Right.
But yeah, I think just kind of being present and being focused and thorough with the work you're doing. You're not just throwing something together on a plate. You are creating something. And I think that's a lesson that I've kind of taken with me into education too.
It's a spectacular lesson.
Yeah.
So you go up to Albany, then you go to the Schenectady Culinary Community College. Mm-hmm. And what was your first job out of that?
I came back down to Rhinebeck, and I worked with Willie Abella over at CJ's for a year and a half or 2 years.
Pizza and Italian food and stuff.
And Willie's great.
Meatballs.
Yep, he's an awesome guy. And I mean, at that point, I was just like, I don't think this is for me. And Willie respected that. He's a great guy. We're still very friendly. He catered my wedding, actually.
Nice.
After that. And then at that point, then I went to work doing landscaping and other stuff, building and stuff like that. And then during the recession, it felt like a good time for me to go back to school. And I can never say enough about like welfare and that whole scene, because I got hooked into a program that paid me to go to school, basically. So while I was in school, I was getting paid through the state, and it gave me just enough to keep my family supported.
Right.
Get my degree.
How big was your family at that point?
At that point, it was just two. Well, okay. Maureen and I, and then two kids.
Right.
And so, once I got a job, I was able to go off. I was on that for like a year or so, maybe, and it gave me enough to get through my degree and to get a job here at Rhinebeck. So
amazing. So you finished and you got a job here at Rhinebeck, and it's not easy to find a teaching job, much less in the place where I'm guessing you really wanted to be.
Yeah, I'm blessed. This was the best job I could ask for.
And how did that happen? And like a history teacher just quit, or?
So it was actually sad. It was my history teacher, Pat Kern. He was taught 7th grade, and his wife came down with cancer. And he is a wonderful human being. And he made the decision to spend the last few years of her life with her. And he resigned, or retired. I'm not sure which he did, but so he decided to make that choice, which I'm sure was challenging for him.
But what a beautiful choice.
Yeah, it was. He's a great guy.
Challenging, but also, you wouldn't look back with regret.
No, I'm sure he does not.
Right. Is he still around? Do you hear from him?
He's out in Buffalo. His son lives out there.
Okay.
And so once he stopped working here, he moved out there with his wife and to spend time with his son and wife in their final years. He wrote a book, actually. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's Unexpected Journey, if I recall, about that journey with his wife.
Right.
Which is great. He's an inspiration, really.
I bet it's a beautiful book. And tell me his name again.
Pat Kern.
Pat Kern.
Yeah.
Huh. So check out his book.
Yeah. So he was retiring. I am very calculating in the choices that I make. I actually didn't know he was retiring, but I wanted to be with really solid mentors. So I was going to Marist at the time for my master's degree, which is another great college. And I requested to be in Rhinebeck, and I worked with Justin Wiesenthal and I worked with Steve Boucher. And I was fortunate enough to be able to get an interview, and then they called me back for sample lessons, and I got the call that I got the job, which was, I think, my connection to Rhinebeck and my devotion to the community, I think, is what put it over for the committee that was making the choice.
What a gift to Rhinebeck that
and a gift to
you
me.
ended up here. So how many years have you been teaching now?
I think this is my 15th year.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Nice. Do you miss anything about being a chef?
I love to cook.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, my gosh.
What's your best dish?
My favorite dish to make is chicken tikka masala.
Really?
Yes, I love chicken tikka masala. I don't make it as much anymore because it's so calorically high.
Yeah, because of the butter and the cream. And,
yeah. Oh my gosh. But my kids like it. I love making it. It's delicious. I
want to have some of your chicken tikka masala.
We'll have to have you over.
Yeah,
we'll have to have you over.
Butter chicken is one of my specialties. They're like next door neighbors.
Well, we should. Yeah, absolutely. We should do that. We should make a little exchange.
Yeah.
When I was living in Madagascar, once a week we would get takeout from Little India, it was called, and I would always get butter chicken and chicken tikka masala and naan bread and stuff like that. So whenever I do chicken tikka masala, I make naan also.
Oh, keep me in mind. I just want a little taste of that.
All right.
And so you have your third kid. Mm-hmm. You adopted.
Our fourth child we adopted. Yeah.
Your fourth child. So you have three kids.
Three biological and a fourth adopted.
And are all four of them in the Rhinebeck school district? Yep.
Everybody's in Rhinebeck. I wouldn't have it any other way.
What are the grades?
So Henry's in 11th grade. Claire, he's 16. Claire's 14 in 9th grade. Joseph's 12 in 6th grade. And Siori is 8 in 2nd grade.
Just amazing. And how's she doing? How old was she when you adopted her from Madagascar?
She was 4, and she was the most timid little peanut you would ever see.
Right.
It was so she also has sickle cell anemia. And it was a little scary because when we got her, she was so malnourished. The nuns took care of her as well as they could, but they are not resourced. They're not resourced well. And so she was just eating rice, really, at that point in time. She couldn't sit up without help. And it was a little scary. She had to get a blood transfusion. And so now with her sickle cell, and she's really healthy and she's doing great. So
is that treatable?
It's manageable. It's kind of like diabetes,
right?
In that it's not going away.
Okay.
But she's on a couple medications that she takes daily, and her blood count's great, and she has crises sometimes, but we're able to manage it.
And it's anemia, which means fewer red blood cells than you need?
Her blood cells are different, so they're shaped like crescent moons.
Like sickles.
Yeah, and it's the scary thing is, imagine sickles going through your blood. They get caught, and once they get caught, they clot up. And it causes a lot of pain in your joints and stuff like that.
Right.
And so sometimes she'll just, and it's frustrating because there's no point to the pain. It's not like the pain's telling you to stop doing X, Y, and Z or you got to cut. It's just pain.
And are there X, Y, and Z's that she should steer clear of?
Yeah. So physical activity is really tough. So she was playing soccer for a while.
Right.
And that would trigger some stuff in her. She's got to stay hydrated a lot. Being out in the sun for too long, overheating, going into like a really cold pool for too long of a time.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff she's got to stay away from, those kinds of activities. And she's pretty good at managing that stuff on her own at 8 years old. It's pretty impressive.
Right.
But it's also scary because Like one of the medications she's on is because her kidneys don't function properly now at 8 years old. Like the sickle cells have just like ripped apart some of her kidneys.
Oof, gads.
So, but the really cool thing is there is potentially there's like a cure that they're doing research in that's like genetic modification that has been successful. And so my hope is by the time she's a teenager or in her early 20s, she'll be in better shape to be able to get that treatment.
Right. Well, Henry Frischknecht, we're running out of time again.
Sure.
I wanted to ask you, I looked this up. What the hell does Frischknecht mean? I mean, so many names mean things.
Yeah. So
then I'll tell you what I found.
Okay. So my research has said it means like you're a fresh page, which is like the assistant to a knight.
Oh, well.
Like, what did your research show?
My research said fresh knight or fresh servant, a new helper.
So
that's sort of translated.
Like the exact same thing.
And yeah, pretty close. And I was like, holy fuck balls. That describes Frischknecht.
It's like a Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's just so I read that and I'm like, well, that's really you. I mean, your life of service and your freshness and the energy that you bring to everything. It's so inspiring, and it's always been inspiring to me, and just got to be so much more inspiring seeing you on the board of CultureConnect every month. And thank you for all your service and for coming in here and talking with us this Friday night. People listening, thanks for listening whenever you're listening, and have a great day.
Thanks, Norm.
Thanks, Henry.